Loki, the trickster god, stood on the edge of the forest, watching as the giantess Angerboa cradled a newborn in her arms. This was no ordinary child. He was Fenrir, a creature destined for greatness and terror. His fur was as dark as the night, his eyes gleaming with a fierce intelligence that belied his tender age. From the moment of his birth, Fenrir was different, an embodiment of wild power and raw, untamed strength. The gods of Asgard, far from rejoicing in the arrival of a new being, trembled at the thought of what this child might become. Whispers of prophecy spread like wildfire through the halls of the gods. They had seen glimpses of the future, and what they saw filled them with dread. Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, was destined to play a role in the end of everything, the dreaded Ragnarok. Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, was a prophecy known to all in Asgard. It foretold a time of chaos, where the world would be engulfed in fire and blood, and the gods would fall. And at the heart of this cataclysmic event stood Fenrir, a beast whose might would challenge even the strongest of the Aesir. Despite this dark prophecy, a decision had to be made. The gods knew that casting Fenrir away could lead to even greater peril. After all, he was still a child, innocent, unaware of the storm that would one day swirl within him. So, with heavy hearts, they chose to bring him into their fold, to raise him among the Aesir, hoping against hope that they might guide him, temper his wild nature, and perhaps, just perhaps, avert the fate they so feared. Tyr, the god of war and law, was the first to step forward. He looked into the eyes of the wolf pup, seeing not just the beast he would become, but the potential for something more. Tyr, more than any other, believed in the power of choice. He believed that Fenrir, raised with care and honor, could choose a different path, one that did not end in destruction. As the days turned into months, Fenrir grew quickly. What had once been a small, vulnerable creature now began to take on the shape of the fearsome wolf he was destined to be. His size and strength became evident as he towered over the other creatures in Asgard, his presence commanding both respect and fear. Yet, despite his formidable appearance, there was a softness in Fenrir, a loyalty to Tyr, who had become his closest companion. But the gods could not forget the prophecy. Every time they looked at Fenrir, they were reminded of the future that awaited them. The thought gnawed at them, a constant, unspoken fear that grew as Fenrir did. They watched him with wary eyes, torn between the bond they had formed with the young wolf and the knowledge of what he might one day do. Even as a pup, Fenrir's spirit was indomitable. He played and fought with a vigor that made the earth tremble beneath his paws. The other gods kept their distance, but not Tyr. He stood by Fenrir's side, feeding him, training him, and in those moments, there was no fear, only a bond between man and beast that seemed unbreakable. But bonds, no matter how strong, are not enough to silence the whispers of destiny. The gods could not ignore the truth. They had seen it in their visions, Fenrir, fully grown, breaking free from the chains meant to hold him, his jaws wide as he devoured the sun. They knew, deep down, that no matter how they tried to raise him, Fenrir was fated to fulfill his role in Ragnarok. Still, they couldn't bring themselves to act against him. He was, after all, still a part of their world, still a being with feelings, with a heart that beat like any other. But as Fenrir grew, so did their unease. His power was undeniable, and with each passing day, the gods felt the weight of their decision pressing down on them. Tyr, though steadfast in his love for Fenrir, began to sense the change in the air. The other gods became more distant, their conversations hushed when he was near. They were planning something, and Tyr knew what it was. They wanted to bind Fenrir, to ensure that the prophecy would never come to pass. But how do you bind someone who trusts you? How do you betray a friend? Fenrir, unaware of the turmoil in the hearts of the gods, continued to live among them. He grew larger, stronger, his power evident in every stride. And yet, he remained loyal to Tyr, his only true friend among the Aesir. It was this loyalty, this bond, that made the coming betrayal all the more tragic. The gods had decided that they could not take any chances. Fenrir had to be bound, for the sake of the world, for the sake of their survival. They knew the day was coming when they would have to act, but none of them could look Fenrir in the eyes without feeling a pang of guilt. None, except for Tyr, who understood more than anyone the price that would have to be paid. The day would come when Fenrir would learn the truth, when the trust he had placed in the gods would be shattered. But for now, he remained blissfully unaware, living each day with the innocence of a creature who had not yet discovered the weight of his destiny. He still believed in the bond he shared with Tyr, still believed that he was a part of the world that had taken him in. But prophecies are not easily avoided, and destiny has a way of catching up with those who try to escape it. Fenrir's time would come, and when it did, the world would tremble beneath the weight of his fury. For now, though, he was just a wolf, a creature with a heart as wild as the forests he roamed, and a soul that was still, in some small way, free. The sun barely peeked over the horizon when Fenrir's growls filled the air, echoing through Asgard like distant thunder. From the moment he opened his eyes, it was clear that Fenrir was not a normal wolf. As he grew, so did his size and strength, each day adding more power to his already formidable presence. Fenrir's growth was astonishing. The small, innocent cub that the gods had taken in was soon unrecognizable. His muscles rippled beneath his dark fur, and his eyes burned with an intensity that made even the bravest Aesir shudder. Each day, his size increased, until he was a towering figure whose very steps made the earth tremble. The gods could only watch in silent dread as their worst fears began to take shape before their eyes. The gods, once eager to see Fenrir thrive, now looked upon him with growing apprehension. What had begun as a promise of hope and potential was transforming into a looming threat. Every time Fenrir roared, the heavens seemed to darken, and every time he ran through the fields, the ground seemed to shake. The prophecy that had once felt like a distant shadow was now an ever-present reality. Despite the growing unease among the gods, one figure remained a constant presence by Fenrir's side. Tyr, the god of war and justice, had always been a loyal friend to the young wolf. Where others saw a beast to be feared, Tyr saw a companion, a creature deserving of trust and care. He fed Fenrir, trained him, and spent countless hours by his side, whispering words of encouragement and affection. Tyr's bond with Fenrir was unique. While the other gods hesitated to come close, Tyr embraced the role of caretaker and friend. He understood that the beast's formidable strength did not diminish his capacity for friendship and loyalty. Tyr saw past the prophecies and the fear, focusing instead on the wolf's potential for good. Their bond was evident in every interaction. Tyr would often bring Fenrir treats, his own way of showing affection. He would play with the wolf, engaging in mock battles and games that allowed Fenrir to channel his energy in positive ways. Through these moments, a connection was forged, one that went beyond mere companionship. It was a bond of mutual respect and trust, and it was Tyr who saw Fenrir as more than just a pawn in a grand, dark scheme. Tyr's affection for Fenrir was not without its costs. As Fenrir grew stronger, the danger of their relationship becoming a liability increased. The other gods watched with growing concern, their unease turning into outright fear. Tyr's dedication to Fenrir put him at odds with the rest of the Aesir, who saw only a threat in the wolf's increasing power. The days grew heavier for Tyr. He could see the fear in the eyes of his fellow gods, and he felt the weight of their growing unease. Yet, he remained steadfast. In his heart, he believed that Fenrir's destiny was not set in stone, that there was still a chance for redemption, for a different future. Every time Fenrir looked at him with those loyal eyes, Tyr felt a surge of hope and determination. The bond between Tyr and Fenrir was not just about friendship, it was a beacon of light in the growing darkness. Tyr's belief in the wolf's potential for good kept the shadows at bay, even as they loomed larger each day. He knew that Fenrir, despite his growing strength and the prophecies that surrounded him, was still a being with feelings, with a heart that could be touched and changed. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across Asgard, Tyr would sit by Fenrir's side. He would run his hand through the wolf's thick fur, feeling the warmth and strength beneath. In those moments, the fear of the gods seemed to melt away, leaving only the simple, pure bond between man and beast. Tyr whispered words of encouragement, telling Fenrir of a future where they could live in harmony, where strength could be a force for good. Fenrir, in turn, responded with a gentle nudge, a gesture of trust and affection. To him, Tyr was not just a caretaker, he was a friend, a mentor, and a source of unwavering support. Despite the fear and apprehension that surrounded him, Fenrir found solace in Tyr's presence, a comfort that was both grounding and empowering. But as Fenrir grew, so did the fear of the gods. They watched with increasing anxiety, their once hopeful plans now overshadowed by the looming threat of Ragnarok. Each day, they faced the stark reality of their decision to raise Fenrir among them, grappling with the consequences of their choice. Tyr's role became even more crucial. He was the only one who could bridge the gap between fear and hope, between prophecy and potential. His bond with Fenrir was a reminder of the possibility of a different path, a path where friendship and loyalty could triumph over fate and prophecy. In the quiet moments, away from the prying eyes of the gods, Fenrir and Tyr's bond remained unbreakable. The wolf's strength and power were undeniable, but so was the depth of their connection. It was a bond forged in the fires of adversity, a testament to the enduring power of friendship in the face of overwhelming odds. The days went by, each one bringing Fenrir closer to his fated role in Ragnarok. The god's fear continued to grow, but so did the bond between Fenrir and Tyr. It was a relationship that defied the prophecy, a glimmer of hope in a world overshadowed by darkness. And in the heart of the beast, the warmth of Tyr's friendship was a beacon that shone through the storm of destiny, a reminder that even in the face of the greatest fears, there could still be moments of light and love. The clank of metal against stone echoed through the halls of Asgard as the gods began their desperate task. They had seen the signs, the terrifying strength of Fenrir growing each day, and they knew it was only a matter of time before they had to act. Their hearts were heavy with fear and uncertainty as they crafted the first chains, Lengr and Dromi, hoping to bind the beast who was growing more formidable with each passing moment. Lengr, the first chain, was forged with great effort. The gods used all their skill and might to create it, hoping its strength would be enough to hold the monstrous wolf. They envisioned it as an unbreakable bond, a chain that could withstand even the fiercest struggles. When it was completed, they carried it to Fenrir with a mixture of hope and trepidation, believing this would be the solution to their growing problem. Fenrir, unaware of the true reason for their visit, approached with curiosity. He watched as the gods laid the chain before him, their faces tense and expectant. With a nonchalant snarl, he allowed them to wrap the chain around his powerful limbs. The gods held their breath, watching as Fenrir tested the strength of the chain. To their horror, he merely flexed his muscles, and with a single, effortless twist, Lengr shattered into pieces. The gods stood in stunned silence, their fears confirmed. The gods quickly realized that Lengr was not nearly strong enough to contain Fenrir. They regrouped, their anxiety mounting with each failed attempt. The urgency in their hearts grew as they began crafting the second chain, Dromi, hoping that this one would be different. The gods put all their remaining hopes into Dromi, believing that its stronger composition might finally be enough to contain the beast. With Dromi completed, the gods approached Fenrir once more, their faces set with a mixture of determination and fear. Fenrir, now more wary, eyed the new chain with suspicion. The gods wrapped it around him, their hands trembling slightly as they tightened it. Fenrir's eyes flashed with a dangerous glint as he felt the chain biting into his fur. Again, the gods waited, their hopes pinned on the strength of Dromi. Fenrir began to test his restraints, his powerful muscles straining against the chain. It was a heart-stopping moment as the gods held their breath, praying that this chain would hold. But the terror soon set in again. Fenrir let out a roar that shook the heavens, and with a force that defied imagination, he broke Dromi with the same ease as Lengr. The gods' faces fell into despair as they witnessed their second failure. The chains that had been forged with all their might were reduced to mere scraps. They could hardly believe the power Fenrir possessed, nor the ease with which he shattered their creations. The reality of the situation was sinking in. They needed something far beyond their current capabilities to contain such a beast. Their desperation grew as they realized that their initial attempts were futile. The strength of Fenrir was beyond anything they had anticipated, and their methods seemed inadequate against his formidable power. They began to understand that mere chains, no matter how well crafted, were not enough to restrain a creature of his magnitude. The gods, once filled with confidence and hope, were now gripped by a sense of foreboding. The prophecy of Fenrir's role in Ragnarok loomed larger than ever, its shadow casting a chilling pall over Asgard. Each failed attempt to bind Fenrir only reinforced their fears, making them question whether they could ever truly contain the beast. In their darkest moments, the gods felt the weight of their own limitations. They had seen the monster's strength firsthand, and their efforts to contain it had only highlighted their own vulnerability. The challenge before them was growing more daunting with each passing day, and their desperation reached a fever pitch. The gods knew they had to find a new solution, one that could match the terrifying strength of Fenrir. The chains had proven ineffective, and the reality of their situation pressed heavily upon them. The hope that once filled their hearts now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the cold reality of their task. As the echoes of their failed attempts reverberated through Asgard, the gods were left to face the daunting task ahead. The binding of Fenrir was no longer a matter of simple craftsmanship. It required something far greater, something that could stand against the overwhelming force of the beast. The desperation in their hearts grew as they realized the gravity of their challenge, knowing that the fate of the world might well depend on their next move. The weight of their failure was palpable, each attempt a reminder of the immense power that Fenrir possessed. The gods had been humbled by the strength of the beast they had once hoped to control, and their path forward was shrouded in uncertainty and fear. The tension in Asgard was palpable as the gods faced their greatest challenge yet. After witnessing the failure of Lingr and Dromi, their hearts were heavy with fear and desperation. Fenrir's strength was beyond anything they had ever encountered, and their previous attempts to bind him were nothing more than dust in the wind. As their last hope, the gods turned to the dwarves, known throughout the realms for their unmatched skill in crafting. The dwarves, deep in their underground forges, were approached with a request that echoed through the stone halls. They were to forge a binding that no force could break. The gods, trembling with the weight of their task, implored the dwarves to create something truly extraordinary, something that could withstand Fenrir's immense power. The dwarves accepted the challenge, their faces set with determination. They knew this would be their most ambitious creation yet. With meticulous care, they began gathering materials for the binding, each one chosen for its symbolic and mystical properties. The items they selected were as enchanting as they were rare: the sound of a cat's footsteps, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. Each material was infused with its own form of magic, representing the essence of things that were, in themselves, elusive and intangible. The sound of a cat's footsteps, soft and nearly silent, symbolized stealth and the ability to slip through the cracks. The beard of a woman, typically a symbol of strength, was included for its supposed resilience. The roots of a mountain represented unyielding stability, while the sinews of a bear embodied raw, physical power. The breath of a fish, light and insubstantial, and the spittle of a bird, ephemeral and rare, were the final touches to this unique creation. The dwarves worked day and night, their hammers ringing like a heartbeat through the cold stone. Their forge blazed with an intense heat as they combined these mystical materials, weaving them together into a chain that was not only unbreakable but also deceptively simple. The binding, which they named Gleipnir, appeared to be nothing more than a delicate ribbon, its surface smooth and unassuming. To the casual observer, it seemed fragile, almost as if it could snap at any moment. But Gleipnir was anything but ordinary. Its seemingly harmless appearance belied the incredible strength it possessed. The materials used in its creation had been chosen for their ability to symbolize and harness the very essence of things that were rare and elusive. Together, they formed a binding that was capable of restraining the mightiest of beings. The delicate ribbon, despite its appearance, was imbued with the strength of legends and the magic of ancient enchantments. The moment Gleipnir was completed, the dwarves carefully presented it to the gods, their faces a mixture of pride and solemnity. The gods took the ribbon, their hopes rekindled by the sight of this unassuming but powerful creation. They knew that this was their last chance to bind Fenrir, and the burden of success or failure now rested on the fragile ribbon they held in their hands. As the gods carried Gleipnir to Fenrir, their hearts were pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. They approached the beast with cautious optimism, their eyes locked on the ribbon that would either fulfill their destiny or lead to their doom. Fenrir, sensing the tension, looked at the ribbon with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. The gods, their faces taut with anticipation, began to wrap Gleipnir around the beast's limbs. Fenrir tested the binding with a gentle tug, and the gods held their breath, praying for the strength they so desperately needed. As Fenrir struggled, Gleipnir remained firm and unyielding, its delicate appearance concealing the immense power it held. The gods watched in awe and relief as the ribbon, seemingly too gentle to contain such a force, held steady. The struggle was met with unbreakable resistance, and for the first time, the gods felt a flicker of hope. Gleipnir's creation was a moment of profound significance. The binding represented the culmination of the gods' desperation, the dwarf's skill, and the ancient magic of rare materials. It was a testament to the power of ingenuity and the belief that even the most unassuming of objects could harbor incredible strength. As the gods prepared for the final confrontation with Fenrir, Gleipnir stood as their beacon of hope, its delicate appearance hiding the immense power within. The gods felt a shiver of awe and trepidation as they witnessed the transformation of the beast into a being bound by the magical ribbon. The struggle between Fenrir's immense strength and Gleipnir's unyielding magic was a spectacle that would be remembered for ages. The creation of Gleipnir was not just a victory, it was a symbol of the gods' unrelenting determination and the dwarves' unmatched craftsmanship. The delicate ribbon, so seemingly fragile, had become the embodiment of hope and power, a true testament to the strength that can be hidden in the most unexpected places. The gods knew that their plan to bind Fenrir with Gleipnir was a delicate operation, one that required not just strength but cunning. They approached the beast with the magical ribbon, concealing their true intentions behind a facade of trust and camaraderie. The air crackled with tension as they prepared to deceive Fenrir, hoping that their plan would succeed without triggering the beast's wrath. Fenrir, now aware of the gods' previous failed attempts, eyed Gleipnir with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. He was not easily fooled. His sharp senses detected the underlying tension in the gods' behavior. The cunning of the gods was matched only by Fenrir's own wariness. He had grown wary of their every move, and as they approached with the ribbon, his instincts screamed that something was amiss. Before the gods could even begin to explain their intentions, Fenrir's eyes narrowed. His growl was low and menacing as he demanded an assurance of good faith. The beast's suspicion was clear. He refused to be bound without some guarantee that the gods were not tricking him. Fenrir's immense power and keen intelligence made him a formidable opponent, and the gods understood that convincing him would not be easy. In a moment of painful decision, Tyr, the god of war and justice, stepped forward. Tyr had always been known for his sense of honor and bravery, and he knew that his role in this plan would be crucial. He made a choice that would forever be etched in the annals of Asgardian history. With a heavy heart, Tyr extended his hand toward Fenrir's gaping maw. The gods watched in silent horror as Tyr offered his hand as a gesture of trust, a symbol that they were not deceiving the beast. Fenrir's eyes widened with surprise as he looked at Tyr's outstretched hand. He could see the determination in Tyr's face, a resolute expression that spoke of the gods' willingness to sacrifice his own safety for the sake of their plan. The beast's growl softened as he considered the gesture. It was a bold move, one that spoke of true bravery and conviction. With a hesitant but calculated motion, Fenrir allowed the gods to wrap Gleipnir around his powerful limbs. The ribbon, delicate and seemingly insubstantial, slid over his fur like a whisper. As the binding tightened, Fenrir struggled against it, testing its strength. The gods held their breath, watching as the ribbon held firm, its magic countering the beast's immense power. The tension was palpable as Fenrir tested the binding with increasing force. His eyes remained fixed on Tyr's hand, which was now trapped in his jaws. The situation was a precarious balancing act between trust and treachery. The gods' hearts pounded with fear and hope as they watched the beast's reaction. Fenrir's struggle continued, and the gods felt a wave of anxiety wash over them. The beast's power was immense, and every movement seemed to push the limits of Gleipnir's strength. The gods knew that if Fenrir's suspicions were confirmed, their plan would fail, and the consequences would be dire. In a final, dramatic moment, Fenrir's eyes locked onto Tyr's. The trust and bravery in Tyr's expression were undeniable, and the beast's growl softened once more. The binding held steady, and Fenrir's strength was finally subdued by the magic of Gleipnir. The gods exhaled in collective relief, their plan having succeeded despite the perilous risk. Tyr's hand remained in Fenrir's mouth, a testament to his bravery and the high stakes of their endeavor. The gods knew that their deception had been a dangerous gamble, but it was one that had paid off. Fenrir, bound by the unbreakable ribbon, was now a prisoner of their making. As Fenrir's eyes met Tyr's, a mixture of anger and resignation flickered within them. The beast had been outwitted, and the gods had achieved their goal. The emotional weight of the moment was heavy, as Tyr's sacrifice became a symbol of the lengths to which the gods were willing to go to protect their world from impending doom. The gods' relief was tempered by the knowledge of the sacrifice Tyr had made. His bravery would be remembered, and his hand, now trapped in Fenrir's jaws, would serve as a reminder of the cost of their victory. The binding of Fenrir was a critical step in their struggle against the forces of chaos, and the gods' emotions ran deep as they faced the consequences of their actions. The tension of the moment, the sacrifice of Tyr, and the deceptive success of the plan all intertwined to create a scene of powerful emotions and high stakes. The gods had managed to bind the monstrous wolf, but the price of their victory was a poignant reminder of the dangers they faced and the sacrifices they were willing to make to protect their world. The moment was charged with a mixture of dread and grim determination. As the gods held their breath, Gleipnir was finally tightened around Fenrir's powerful limbs. The ribbon, delicate and deceptively simple, was now drawn taut. Fenrir's muscles bulged and rippled as he tested the binding, each movement causing the gods' hearts to race with fear and hope. For a fleeting second, time seemed to stand still. The gods watched in silence as Fenrir's eyes darted from the ribbon to the gods themselves. The realization dawned on the beast with a shattering clarity. His gaze turned icy as he understood the true nature of their plan. He had been deceived, tricked into trusting them, only to be ensnared by their cunning trap. Fenrir's roar echoed like thunder through the heavens, a sound of pure, unfiltered rage. The gods' faces were a mixture of sorrow and determination. They knew they had to keep the binding firm, even as the beast's fury grew. The air was thick with the tension of impending violence, and the gods braced themselves for what was to come. Tyr, who had offered his hand as a gesture of trust, now faced the brutal consequence of his bravery. As Fenrir's rage peaked, the beast's teeth sank into Tyr's hand with a force that made the gods wince. The pain was immediate and excruciating, yet Tyr stood resolute, his expression a mixture of agony and unwavering courage. His sacrifice was a testament to his honor, and the gods could only watch in pained silence. The struggle between Fenrir and Gleipnir was fierce. The beast writhed and strained, his powerful jaws locked around Tyr's hand. The gods felt every heartbeat, every tremor of Fenrir's rage as the binding held firm. Tyr's sacrifice was becoming a tragic symbol of the gods' desperation to contain the unstoppable force. The sound of Fenrir's teeth crunching against Tyr's bones was a grim reminder of the price of their deception. Each bite was a reminder of the trust betrayed and the pain of the sacrifice made. Fenrir's eyes were filled with a wild, frantic light as he tried to break free, his anger making the struggle even more intense. The beast's rage was a living, breathing thing, and it roared through the heavens with an almost tangible force. Tyr's face was etched with agony, but his eyes remained steady, locked on Fenrir with a look of resigned bravery. His sacrifice was the ultimate act of honor, an offering of himself to ensure the safety of others. As Fenrir's teeth finally closed around Tyr's hand, the pain was unbearable. Blood flowed freely, mingling with the bitterness of betrayal. The gods watched in pained silence, knowing that the cost of their plan was more than they had ever imagined. The moment of binding was a powerful clash of strength and sacrifice. Fenrir's realization of the gods' betrayal was a gut-wrenching scene, his rage a force of nature that seemed to shake the very foundations of Asgard. Tyr's willingness to sacrifice his hand for the greater good was a poignant testament to his character, his bravery shining through the agony he endured. As the binding took hold, the beast's rage began to subside, though his eyes still burned with fury and betrayal. The gods felt a profound mixture of relief and sorrow. They had succeeded in their immediate goal, but the cost of their victory was etched into their hearts with the raw, unfiltered pain of Tyr's sacrifice. Fenrir's howls of rage faded into sullen growls as the binding held firm. The gods stood in a somber circle around the beast, their faces reflecting the weight of what had transpired. The moment was a chilling reminder of the delicate balance between victory and sacrifice, and the gods could only watch as Fenrir's anger slowly transformed into a sullen resignation. Tyr's hand, now a mangled mess, was a stark reminder of the price of their deception. The gods, though victorious, were left with the haunting echo of Fenrir's rage and the heavy burden of Tyr's sacrifice. The scene was a poignant tableau of pain and bravery, a moment that would be etched into the annals of Asgardian history as a testament to the lengths to which the gods would go to protect their world. The silence that followed Fenrir's binding was eerily heavy. The beast, trapped in Gleipnir's magic, writhed and roared with a fury that seemed to shake the very earth. His powerful limbs were bound, but the rage in his eyes remained as fierce as ever. The unbreakable ribbon held fast, each struggle only tightening its grip. Fenrir's anger was a storm unleashed, a raw force that seemed to challenge the very fabric of the gods' determination. The gods knew that simply binding Fenrir wasn't enough. The beast's howls of rage echoed through the realms, a constant reminder of the danger they faced. To silence these sounds, a grim solution was devised. A sword, cold and gleaming, was placed in Fenrir's mouth. The blade was designed not just to silence his howls, but to add to his torment, a cruel twist to his already painful imprisonment. As Fenrir's jaws closed around the sword, the sight was both tragic and terrifying. The sword, sharp and unyielding, was a constant reminder of his captivity. The gods watched in uneasy silence as the beast's howls were muffled by the cold metal. Each muffled cry was a painful reminder of the cost of their actions. Fenrir's struggle against Gleipnir continued, his rage untempered by the addition of the sword. The beast's eyes blazed with an anger that spoke of betrayal and a desire for vengeance. The prophecy of Fenrir's role in Ragnarok loomed over the scene like a dark cloud. The gods had bound the beast, but the fear of what was to come gnawed at their hearts. They knew that Fenrir was destined to play a crucial role in the end times, a force that would rise against them in a final, cataclysmic battle. The weight of this knowledge added a somber tone to the moment, a chilling reminder of the uncertainty and fear that lay ahead. The prophecy spoke of Fenrir's vengeance, of a time when the bound beast would break free and lead the forces of chaos against the gods. This vision of the future cast a long shadow over the gods' victory. They had succeeded in their immediate goal of containing Fenrir, but the prophecy served as a constant reminder of the precarious balance between their victory and the looming threat. Fenrir's imprisonment was a tragic spectacle. The beast's strength was unyielding, and his rage was a raw, palpable force. The addition of the sword only served to deepen his suffering, the cold metal a constant reminder of his confinement. Each howl, though muffled, carried a weight of pain and defiance that seemed to resonate through the very fabric of the heavens. As the gods looked on, they felt a deep, unsettling sorrow. They had bound Fenrir, but at what cost? The beast's eyes, filled with betrayal and fury, were a haunting reminder of the price of their deception. The prophecy of Fenrir's role in Ragnarok hung over them like a dark cloud, a foreboding vision of a future they could not escape. The scene was one of raw, emotional tension. Fenrir's struggle against Gleipnir was a powerful display of strength and rage, a force that seemed to challenge the gods' resolve. The addition of the sword only added to the beast's suffering, a cruel twist to an already tragic situation. The prophecy, with its chilling vision of the future, served as a constant reminder of the uncertainty and fear that lay ahead. The gods' victory was bittersweet. They had succeeded in their immediate goal, but the cost was heavy. Fenrir's imprisonment was a poignant reminder of the sacrifices they had made and the uncertain future that awaited them. The beast's rage and the prophecy's dark promise hung over them like a shadow, a constant reminder of the delicate balance between victory and the looming threat of chaos. The weight of Fenrir's imprisonment, the addition of the sword, and the chilling prophecy of Ragnarok all combined to create a scene of profound emotional depth. The gods had bound the beast, but the cost of their victory was a heavy burden, a reminder of the sacrifices made and the uncertain future that lay ahead. The aftermath of Tyr's sacrifice was both somber and profound. In the cold light of day, the gods looked upon Tyr with a mix of deep respect and heavy hearts. His bravery had come at a great cost. His hand, now a mangled remnant of the fierce struggle with Fenrir, was a stark reminder of his courage and the price he had paid. The pain was evident in every step he took, each movement a silent testimony to the fierce battle he had endured. Tyr's place among the Aesir was marked by a deep and abiding respect. He stood as a symbol of sacrifice and bravery, a hero who had given his all for the greater good. The gods, while burdened by the sight of his injury, honored him with a reverence that spoke volumes. Tyr was not just a warrior, he was a living legend, his sacrifice etched into the very fabric of Norse mythology. The symbolism of Tyr's loss was profound. His missing hand represented more than just physical injury, it was a powerful symbol of the personal cost of the god's actions. It spoke of the trials faced in the pursuit of a greater good and the heavy price that must sometimes be paid. Tyr's sacrifice was a living, breathing emblem of the courage needed to face unimaginable challenges, a symbol of the enduring spirit that defined the Aesir. His bravery in the face of such personal loss was a powerful testament to his character. While the gods dealt with the immediate consequences of Fenrir's binding, they could not ignore the depth of Tyr's sacrifice. The missing hand was a constant reminder of the battle fought and the heroism displayed. The gods showed their gratitude not just in words but in their actions, ensuring that Tyr's bravery was remembered and honored. Tyr's sacrifice was a poignant reminder of the values that held the Aesir together. His willingness to place his hand in Fenrir's mouth, knowing the risk, was a gesture of profound bravery. It was a decision that encapsulated the essence of heroism, putting oneself at risk for the sake of others. The gods' respect for Tyr was not just a reflection of his bravery, but also a recognition of the personal cost of his actions. In the halls of Asgard, Tyr's sacrifice was commemorated with reverence. His bravery was not just acknowledged but celebrated. The gods and the people alike looked up to him with admiration, his name becoming synonymous with courage and sacrifice. Tyr's loss was a powerful symbol of the enduring spirit of the Aesir, a reminder of the sacrifices made in the fight against chaos and darkness. The honor and respect given to Tyr were a testament to the deep impact of his sacrifice. His bravery in the face of Fenrir's rage, and the personal price he paid, were etched into the annals of Norse mythology. Tyr's name became a symbol of the heroism and selflessness that defined the gods' struggle against the forces of chaos. As the gods continued their vigilance against the threat of Ragnarok, Tyr's sacrifice remained a powerful, emotional touchstone. His bravery in binding Fenrir was a story told and retold, a reminder of the personal sacrifices made in the name of a greater good. Tyr's place among the Aesir was one of profound respect, his loss a poignant reminder of the cost of victory and the enduring spirit of heroism that he embodied. The story of Fenrir's binding is a tale that resonates deeply, echoing through the ages with powerful symbols and themes. It begins with a sense of dread and inevitability, capturing the essence of a struggle against fate that seems both monumental and deeply personal. The gods' decision to bind Fenrir was not just about containing a beast, but grappling with the forces of destiny and chaos that loom over the cosmos. In Norse mythology, Fenrir's binding symbolizes the lengths to which the gods would go to protect their world from the encroaching darkness. The chain Gleipnir, seemingly fragile but unbreakable, represents the tension between appearance and reality. What seemed delicate was, in fact, the strongest force holding back a cataclysmic threat. This symbolic contrast underscores the complex nature of fate and the illusion of control. The themes of fate and sacrifice are deeply intertwined in this myth. Fenrir's binding was foretold by prophecy, a reminder of how even the gods are bound by the threads of destiny. The gods' choice to bind Fenrir, and Tyr's personal sacrifice, reflect a profound acceptance of their roles within this unchangeable narrative. Tyr's act of placing his hand in Fenrir's mouth, knowing the risk, was an ultimate sacrifice, showcasing the painful yet necessary decisions made in the face of inevitable outcomes. The story also touches on the inevitability of fate. Despite the gods' best efforts to prevent it, Ragnarok was destined to come. Fenrir's role in this end-time scenario highlights the inescapable nature of destiny and the gods' struggle against forces beyond their control. Their attempt to bind Fenrir was a desperate bid to alter what was foretold, yet it underscores the myth's core message: some fates are unchangeable. In modern interpretations, the Binding of Fenrir continues to captivate and inspire. It serves as a powerful metaphor for the struggle against overwhelming odds and the sacrifices made in the face of such struggles. The image of the bound Fenrir, waiting for the moment of his release, resonates with contemporary themes of confinement, struggle, and the eventual release of tension or change. The myth's enduring legacy lies in its ability to reflect universal human experiences, struggles with fate, the costs of sacrifice, and the ever-present tension between control and inevitability. The story of Fenrir's binding remains a poignant reminder of the profound and often painful choices that define our struggles against the forces of destiny. Its powerful symbolism and emotional depth continue to touch hearts and inspire reflections on the nature of fate and sacrifice, making it a timeless tale with relevance that transcends the ages.